right, Rotarians and guests, this is the Rotary Club of Toronto, and that's the official bell. I am Prince Kumar, the club president, and it is my pleasure to welcome you to our Rotary meeting today. Next, we will have the recognition of the traditional lands, the invocation, and our Rotary toast. Make sure you have a glass in hand for the Rotary toast, traditional lands. At this time, I'd like to acknowledge that we're on the traditional lands of many Indigenous peoples who have walked and cared for this land for 15,000 years. They include the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee, the Huron-Wendat, and the Treaty Peoples of the Mississaugas of the Credit. Make your travels through time worthwhile. Choose the roads that allow you opportunities to grow and change. Look for adventures that challenge your abilities and find mysteries in life that excite your senses of wonder. Search for the truths that you believe in and discover as many secrets about life you can. Do not be so concerned about finding the easiest roads to travel, but follow the roads that lead you towards being the Rotarian you truly want to be. Thank you. And now we have a special national anthem by a Grammy Award winner artist, Ricky Kej, and with his permission, an environmentalist and an award winner from our parliament will now play the national anthem. And please stand for the playing of the national anthem and our Rotary toast and remain standing until you've been asked to be seated. Rotarians and friends, to our adventures, our journeys, and to Rotary. Please be seated. Rotarians and guests, it is now my pleasure to introduce our head table. I am pleased to have a stellar head table with us today with the following people. Jack Robertson, Rotarian since 1976, 45 yees. Former classification, China Glass. Of course, he's retired at, I believe, 95 plus now, and a club past president and our How We Hobby segment speaker. Now, Jack, I have to say, whether it was our, stories from the Malawi trip that we have shared, or stories with his son, Andrew, or stories at our food bank, it is just so inspiring at everything that you do for our club, and you continue to do that. Thank you so much, Jack, for your service. Next up, Sami Majumdar, one of the newest Rotarian since 2018, classification engineering, engineering design consultant, and transportation infrastructure solutions at HNTB Corporation. Being one of the newest Rotarians, he's already getting engaged in our community outreach committee, and I hear he's already working on designing one of the project proposals, a major project proposals for us. Thank you, Sami, for your service, and I'm looking forward to that. Next, Akililu, Wendaferew, our Assistant Executive Director at the Good Shepherd Ministries since 2000. He is the impact reporter for today, who will be introduced shortly. Rotarian Mary Lach, Rotarian since 1989, 32 years. Classification, travel agency retail. Independent travel advisor with TTI Travel, member of the Foundation Research and Appeals Committee, and of course, our keynote speaker. Now, Mary, I've served with Mary on the board, on the foundation board, on the executive. She is just a wealth of information and so pleasant to be around. I've also shared a few rides with her when we're driving up east. Now, I miss those times, and hopefully we will soon, as things are starting to open up, get to see you more often, Mary. Thank you for your service. Susan Lawson, Business Development Manager with ALLIANZ Global Assistance, our keynote speaker and a key panelist for today, who will be introduced shortly. Lori Patterson, Business Development Manager at Holland America and Seabourn Luxury Cruise Line, also another keynote speaker and a keynote panelist, also will be introduced shortly. Rotarians and guests, our head table. Thank you, Paula, for those slides. Now, we do also have a few visiting Rotarians and guests. So to our visiting Rotarians, thank you for choosing our club for your makeup. We hope you enjoy today's meeting, and we hope we can continue to collaborate with you in the future. To our guests, welcome to our meeting. Please feel free to go on our site and check out our rotarytoronto.com site. If you're interested, click on the join button, and one of our member engagement committee members will be happy to have a discussion with you to see how you can get involved and make a difference in joining us. Rotarians, please welcome our visitors in the tradition of our great club. Some of our meetings are recorded, and yes, this happens to be one such meeting. Please note that all videos and chats are being recorded for this meeting. So if you do not wish to be recorded, please turn off your camera, and always, as you always do, present a professional image and be aware of your surroundings. We will not be able to edit you out at a later point. For our Rotary members, you would have received an email where we've launched off our 4th Rotary Minute video. For those who don't know what a Rotary Minute video is, it's basically in a minute, we hope to empower people to act and get people to smile with these 1-minute stories of what Rotary is all about. So today we have an interesting story. It's all about how do we do hybrid meetings. Let's have a look.
For more information, follow the Rotary Club of Toronto to learn how together we can make a difference.
Now, of course, you notice that was our very own immediate past president who won the coveted award of the best carnival dancer. And not just from one of our members, the judges were panelists coming in from Trinidad, Barbados, and St. Vincent. So the vice president of the St. Vincent Club crowned our very own immediate past president. Congratulations, John. Now remember, folks, for our Rotary Minute videos, they really only work if you like and share them. And of course, they are working because we've already gotten about 35 potential members wanting to join our club. So make sure you go on our social media. They're all across the social media, thanks to our marketing committee. And just go up there, like and share it to your own networks. And of course, enjoy them while you're doing that as well. Next up, we've got a very special segment with our club and our foundation. Every month, we partner up with so many different amazing organizations. Today, we have the pleasure of welcoming Good Shepherd Ministries. And from there, we have Akililu Wendaferew, the Assistant Executive Director of Good Shepherd Ministries since 2000. Akililu provides leadership in the development and management of programs serving homeless and marginalized individuals and leads the clinical team. Akililu earned his BSW from University of Western Ontario and his master's in social work from the University of Ontario, a postgraduate diploma in ethnic and pluralism studies from University of Toronto, and a certificate in not-for-profit management from the joint program of Maitrey Foundation, York University, Schulich School of Business. Wow, Akililu, I think, Akililu, you've gone through most of the wonderful universities in town. Such a pleasure to have you here and looking forward to hearing your impact report. Over to you.
Thank you, President Prince. Thank you all Rotarians for welcoming me here and for giving me an opportunity to talk to you today on behalf of Good Shepherd Ministries. I've got slides, so we'll continue that. Next slide, please. So Good Shepherd Ministries serves the homeless and people who are struggling with poverty here in Toronto. We've been functioning here in Toronto since 1963. We're known for our meal program. Specifically, we're the largest free meal provider in Toronto. The meal program has been operating continuously 365 days a year for over half a century. Next slide, please. So besides the meal program, Good Shepherd also provides 97 beds for the homeless. We provide different toiletries, about 100 every day. We have a housing support for people who look for housing for the homeless. We have an addiction program, medical clinic, and a special program that focuses on serving the homeless veterans. Next slide, please. We also have a couple of supportive housing programs, Barrett House, which is a residence for people living with HIV/AIDS, and also St. Joseph Residence, an alcohol knowledge program, which serves homeless folks that are elderly. Next, please. Our meal program, pre-COVID, we used to provide about 1,000 meals every day, 365 days a year, in our dining room here at 412 Queen Street East. However, since COVID, you can't have so many people in one place. Therefore, we have veered to providing what we call Meals to Go program. And since March 2020, we have provided 281,000 meals to go served to people who would otherwise have gone hungry. Next, please. In terms of the impact of your support, you provided us $20,000 to go toward this program. At Good Shepherd, every meal costs about $3, which means the $20,000 Rotary Club gave to Good Shepherd was able to prepare 6,667 meals for people who otherwise would have gone hungry. So we really appreciate it, really highly appreciate it, and thank you very much. Next, please. You might wonder who comes really to Good Shepherd's meal program. Overall, about 40% of people are homeless. 60% of the people that are coming to the meal program are people who are marginally housed. 70% are seniors, all genders, diverse ethnic, religious, and cultural background. Next, please. So why do so many people in our community struggle for basic necessities? Why do they come to Good Shepherd? Well, first, it's extremely expensive to rent in the rental market. Therefore, it's very, very difficult for people. It takes a huge amount of their income. Second, loss of job or income during the pandemic. A lot of people have lost their job, or they have been laid off, or their hours have been reduced. Because of that, they really need some support. particularly in daily meal programs. Stagnant disability and social assistance. Yes, there has been some increase in social assistance. However, the amount of increase is not that significant. Therefore, that also poses a very serious challenge to a lot of people. Increasingly expensive cost of food and cost of living, as you may have heard recently, about 4.5% increase in cost of living. So cost of living is rising, but people's income is still stagnant. Overall poverty and food insecurity is really what's pushing people to come to places like Good Shepherd. Next, please. So the City of Toronto estimates that 1 in 5 people in Toronto are food insecure, which means they don't have enough food on a day-to-day basis. That's the reality. But all of you, as part of Rotary of Toronto, chose to address poverty and hunger in our community by supporting the meal program at the Good Shepherd Ministries. So you are part of the big solution here. I just want to emphasize that. Thank you. Next, please. Thank you again. Your compassion is helping people who are homeless, isolated seniors, the disabled, unemployed, and the working poor. We look forward to working with you to address food insecurity in our community. Thank you, and I appreciate this opportunity to talk to you. And if you need more information, we are Good Shepherd. You can visit us on the internet. We have a website on Facebook and other social media outlets too. Thank you again. Appreciate it. Back to you, President Prince.
Thank you, Akililu. And I must say, I had the distinct pleasure when our club hosted our international convention prior to COVID, of course, to go to the Good Shepherd Ministries with numerous Rotarians and Rotaractors from across the world, where Good Shepherd opened up their doors to do a meal program, where we saw firsthand what an amazing operation you have there. So thank you for everything that you're doing, Akililu. All right. So next up is our guest panelists and our guest speaker. And it is my pleasure to introduce our keynote speaker, our own, very own, Mary Lach. Mary has a passion for travel and adventure, which led her into travel industry 30 years ago. Travel has always been a big part of her life, with appreciation for art, fascinating history, exploring different cultures and way of life. Her knowledge and experience has allowed her to launch Sensation Travels 25 years ago. As an accomplished consultant and cruise specialist, her attention to detail allows her to craft unique itineraries for repeat clientele to have an extraordinary travel experience. To her, it is a great privilege and immensely satisfying to have her clients entrust her with making their travel dreams come true. And I must say, firsthand experience, not just for myself, but so many Rotary members in our club. Mary does take care of us really, really well, especially when we're going out for our international conventions every single time. Mary, thank you for doing such a stellar job, and over to you.
Thank you, Prince. Who would have thought that the world would come to a complete stop over 20 months ago? COVID has had a devastating impact and shaken the entire industry around the world to its core. It has also transformed the globe and how we do business today. Safety protocols and policies are being implemented daily across all sectors of the industry, which will be permanent moving forward. Much like the security standards adopted from following 9/11, which still remain in effect today 20 years later, now the other layer of protection will be the digital vaccination passport as proof of being vaccinated and a key to reopening and getting the world traveling again without the need to quarantine. Vaccination passports are nothing new in our industry, which have been used in paper form for many years. For example, if you were to going on an Amazon to the Amazon or a safari, you had to have malaria, and yellow fever vaccinations. But this is now we're getting into the digital form. But many countries are still slow in adopting this added layer of protection, and includes Canada. But finally, this week, Prime Minister Trudeau announced the vaccine passport and proof of vaccination requirements for non-essential travel, which are now up and running. However, the systems vary from province to province, and they still need to be standardized across the country. As of October 30th, everyone over the age of 12 traveling by air or train within Canada must show proof of full COVID vaccination. Last week, the White House announced that as of November the 8th, borders will reopen for the first time since the pandemic began. This week, US officials have confirmed that airlines will check passengers' vaccination status as the country reopens its borders to fully vaccinated travelers. And that mixed travel vaccinations will be accepted, provided they are approved by WHO, or the World Health Organization. Airlines will be required to check travelers' vaccination status before they can board planes departing for the US, and confirm that the proof of vaccination comes from an official source. Unvaccinated travelers, including Americans, will have to show a negative COVID-19 test taken within 1 day of departure, and children under the age of 18 will be exempt from the vaccination requirement, but must still provide a negative test prior to travel. As for Canadians, we will need to be tested prior to our return from abroad. On Monday, Air Canada announced that they are now selling portable, self-administered, the COVID-19 molecular and antigen test kits through a partnership with Switch Health, a Canadian-based healthcare company. Using this portable kit, travelers can now self-administer the test themselves while abroad and prior to their return to Canada, to make sure they meet Government of Canada testing entry requirements without the need to visit foreign COVID-19 testing clinics. Canadians are anxious to return and resume traveling again after almost 2 years of living with the pandemic. And today, I have a pleasure of, and two very interesting guest panelists that I would like to introduce to you for a discussion on what you should know and expect prior to your trip. My first panelist is Susan Lawson. Susan is an accomplished travel industry executive and business entrepreneur. She has developed a rounded portfolio of experience over the 30-year plus career in the travel industry. Susan has successfully managed a full range of travel and tourism responsibilities on both the wholesale and retail side of the business. In 2015, she joined ALLIANZ Global Assistance, a travel insurance company widely used by the travel industry. With her extensive experience, passion for travel, and out-of-the-box problem-solving skills, she works closely as a dedicated business development manager for TTI. She recognizes that value and importance of protecting clients and their investments while they fulfill their travel dreams. She is committed to building a client satisfaction by providing support, knowledge, and tools to travel professionals, partners at TTI. And my second panelist is Lori Patterson. Lori has worked with Carnival Corporation as a business development manager for Holland America Cruise Line since 2000. Her territory is Eastern Canada, as she spends a great deal of time traveling and visiting travel agents to talk about her passion, which is cruising. Prior to working with Holland America, Lori was a travel agent in Alberta, where she was born and raised for 20 years, and very lucky to have traveled and cruised to many parts of the world, which have been a gift. When she is not cruising or traveling for work, she loves to spend time with her husband, Doug, and daughter, Savannah, who just left for university life. They are avid skiers and hikers, and their dog keeps them working on the Georgian Trail daily at home and in the Blue Mountains. And now, if I may, I will address my first question to Susan. Susan, given the fact that a number of changes have been announced in the last week and a half, what insurance would you recommend to travelers today?
Well, thank you, Mary. It's a pleasure to be here. And thank you so much, Mary, for this invitation. And this has been a joy already, just sitting in your meeting and listening. It's been a wonderful experience. It's amazing the work that you do. So congratulations to President Prince and everyone with the Rotary Club of Toronto. Clearly, you do a lot of work together. And so I'm very proud to be here with Mary and Lori to chat a little bit about travel insurance. But my role is, as Mary mentioned, I am a dedicated business development manager for the travel industry. So everything that I say when I respond to anything with regards to our product is all with regards to the product and plan that is sold through our travel partners, like our valued partners at TTI. So I like to preface that because ALLIANZ is a global brand and you will see us worldwide, and we sell our insurance in many different distribution channels. And so with that, there are many different plans. And as I'm sure you realize, with every different insurance provider, the policies are all very different. So it's important that you know what your policy provides you in terms of protection for your trip, because they're all so different. So I like to just mention that. And also I wanted to just say with regards to Mary's question, in today's world, and I'm talking today, because I think Mary did an amazing job of just going through all of the changes that are happening constantly and in our industry, and to be able to keep on top of that, to provide that kind of service and information to your clients is critical. And I think the value of a travel advisor, I mean, I've always known it in all my years of the industry, but clearly we have seen this come through over and over again through these last 2 years with what the travel advisors have done in going above and beyond for their clients. It's so important that you book your travel through a travel advisor like Mary. And so when you ask, what would you sell today? Because we don't know what's going to happen in 5 hours from now or tomorrow with the changes that happen. And that's how fast they happen, to be able to manage all that. So my advice today, based on the circumstances, given that the advisory has been lifted and we no longer have a level 3 advisory to avoid all non-essential travel. Yes, we still do have a level 4 advisory to avoid all cruising, but we'll talk about that in a minute. So you're booking your trip. Mary's created this amazing trip for you. What is the best travel insurance to buy today? I'm assuming that you have no travel insurance on any other with your credit card or any other provider. So assuming that you don't, I would start with the all-inclusive plan with cancel for any reason. So the all-inclusive plan is your most robust plan that we have available and gives you the best value. And the cancel for any reason gives you the flexibility that we also need so much now with all of these changes. Within the all-inclusive plan, there's 2 components. There's the emergency hospital and medical. And then there's also the trip cancellation and interruption. So with the emergency hospital and medical, what that's doing is providing you for expenses once you leave your home province, providing you with coverage if you have a sudden emergency. And as of last week, when the advisory went down, that includes in our plan COVID-19. So you would be covered with our emergency hospital and medical plan today if you traveled. The other piece of that is the trip cancellation and interruption. The trip cancellation and interruption, even though the advisory is down, COVID is still what we call a known event. So there's a reason to expect that something could in fact cause you to cancel your trip as it relates to COVID-19. We're all aware of it now. And so our trip cancellation and interruption policy, we have 26 covered reasons, but because COVID is a known event, it will be excluded. So you will not have protection to cancel your trip for COVID-19 or interruption for COVID-19. However, we do make one exception to that. And that is if you get COVID in your home province before you leave. So I become ill and I am positive and I have to cancel my trip, we will cover you under illness for that. So it's important to see, as you can see, there's many different moving parts, and depending on your trip, what your needs are in terms of your travel insurance. And the last piece is the cancel for any reason. And the reason I say that is to provide you with as much flexibility as we can in these times. So what the cancel for any reason does is it provides you the opportunity to actually put a claim in for any reason. So if in fact we go back to that example that I just gave you, that if I had there was a reason for COVID that I needed to cancel, I just said we're not covered because it's a known event. That's why I want to have the cancel for any reason. Now with the cancel for any reason, because of course it's a high risk product, because we allow you to cancel for any reason, the benefits are tiered. So the only note I'm going to make there is that needs to be decided. If you're going to be canceling and using your cancel for any reason, you need to do it 7 days prior to departure in order to get 75% of your money back. Now, of course, if you did have to cancel for one of the 25 other covered reasons, because 26 is not covered, the other 25 other reasons, you'd get all your money back right up until date of departure. So not to confuse you, but just to give you a few little tips of the questions that you do want to ask Mary when you're ready to book. So what do I need now? So that would be my recommendation in terms of what to buy in today's environment with what we're looking at. So back to you, Mary.
Okay, Susan, prior to all the changes of this week, ALLIANZ Insurance had COVID-19 medical insurance. Is this insurance still valid or applicable?
Well, that's a good question. And I'm glad that you brought that up because, of course, when March 2020 happened and the advisory went up to avoid all non-essential travel, it really stopped everybody from traveling. But we recognized as we continued on this journey, not knowing how long it was going to last, that there were still people that needed to travel and there were people that still chose to travel and to travel against the advisory. And so what that meant was at that time with the advisory being up, if they traveled, they didn't have any emergency hospital and medical for COVID-19. They weren't covered. And clearly that was a high risk. And so in October of last year, our senior leadership team, our product team, we came to the table and we created a COVID-19 plan specifically for COVID-19. Now it's predominantly an EHM or emergency hospital and medical plan. That's the most part of that's included in the benefit. So now today, as I just said, the advisory's down. You don't need that emergency hospital and medical piece from the COVID plan because you're now covered. But we don't know if anything's going to change and it goes back up to a 3, and then we will need that COVID-19 insurance. So we definitely still have it available. And the other thing I just want to make note of is that we also have a couple of little bit of interruption in that COVID-19 plan as it reflects on quarantine and denied boarding. And that is unique to the COVID-19 plan. So there may be other reasons that you would buy the COVID-19 plan for that little bit of protection that I've just mentioned. So yes, it's still available. However, if you're traveling and you have your emergency hospital and medical and you have coverage for COVID-19 and you choose to do so prior to departure, you can refund that policy, and we will fully refund that policy if you decide that you're not going to take the COVID-19 with you. Over to you, Mary.
Thank you, Susan. I will have one more question, and that is the cruise lines are still under number 4. They're still not allowed to or advised not to travel. Is there a medical coverage for cruise ships passengers if they do decide to travel now?
Well, there's 2 things I just wanted to say. The first one, when I do talk about the advisory that the Canadian Global Affairs manages, they're in control of that, not the insurance company. And that's what we follow. We highly recommend, even before COVID, but now that clients, and of course we know our partners, are checking that advisory at least twice. Once when they're booking the trip, and then once before they depart, just in case anything changes. Of course, our partners, our cruise partners, our industry partners have all worked so hard as we go through and navigate these difficult times. And I mean, Lori and I have worked in the industry for over 30 years. We know we've been through a lot together. And so, of course, we support each other. And with a level 4 on cruises to do not cruise, as it relates to COVID, and that's an important piece. So you can still buy a policy from us. As I mentioned, you could buy that all-inclusive with cancel for any reason. Of course, you wouldn't buy the COVID-19 even if you wanted it, because it doesn't work because it's a level 4. But you need the emergency hospital and medical for anything else besides COVID-19. If you fall and break your leg, you need to be covered. So you absolutely can still buy that all-inclusive with cancel for any reason. And that cancel for any reason gives you the flexibility that if you decide that you're not going to travel, you're still going to get 75% of your money. So I hope that helps in just giving you a little bit of idea. We just need to work around and see where the gaps are to feel out what is best for your client, depending on the cruise they're taking.
Thank you, Susan. Thank you, Susan. That was very informative. And like you said, we need to change the advisory and all the rules when we book and prior to our guest departure to figure out which one would be the best fit for our client. And now I would like to ask a few questions of Lori. Lori, Canadians are avid cruisers. Can you tell us if Holland America and Seabourn have resumed their pre-pandemic schedule?
Thank you, Mary. First off, I would like to say thank you so much for inviting me here today. As Susan said, it's an absolute privilege to not only work with you over the past years, but also to see all of the amazing work that Rotarians have been doing and how important that is. I don't think it is known well enough, and I don't think you toot your own horn enough. I think we need to spread the word about the work that you do. It's really quite impressive. So I am very pleased to be here today to talk about cruising, and the one thing that I can say is I'm glad I'm not in insurance, because that is very, very complicated, and it's also ever changing. And if there's one thing that we have had to deal with over the last 2 years is the pivoting and the very quick changing environment that we all have to live in. And when you are asking, have we resumed our cruise schedule? Well, let me tell you, nobody would rather be resuming cruising than all of us. We would love to have all of our ships back in the water. But during the immediate pause in March of 2020, we put our ships into what is called a warm layup process. So that means we took our fleet at Holland America, and at that time we had 15 ships. So we had to take those ships and deploy them all over the world once the passengers were off of those vessels. And we have to put them in a state where they have a maintenance crew on board, where we can still manage the ships, because it's almost like a shark. They have to keep moving. So those engines still keep turning. They still have to be kept clean. It's a very complicated process. So we have a staff of about 150 people on board every one of our ships just to maintain the ship, because we had, as Susan said, and as Mary has said, absolutely no idea how long this was actually going to be happening to all of us. So here we are almost 2 years later, and we are now beginning our return to service. So as some borders have opened up, and as the CDC has also relaxed some of the rules and restrictions for cruising, we have now introduced 2 ships this summer with an Alaska program, and we also had 1 ship sailing out of Athens, Greece, in the Mediterranean on the Holland America side. We also have on Seabourn, we have 1 ship in the Caribbean waters at this time. Now, as November nears, we will be adding 4 more ships into the waters for sailing in the Caribbean. So as the snow begins to fly and everybody's looking for warmer destinations, we will be ready to resume cruising. It's a very complicated process to get a ship up and running and get it all supplied. And with supply chains broken pretty much all over the world, that has also been a big challenge. And we also have to get all of our staff back on board the ships. So we have a very big mountain to climb, one which we are very happy and very privileged to do, so we can have our guests back on board. We are so excited. I can't tell you how long we have been waiting for this. What I can tell you is I just came back on Monday from a cruise. I was on one of our new ships. We just started. I was on the very first itinerary, sailing the Mexican cruise. So we went from San Diego down the Mexican coast for 7 days, and the experience was absolutely fantastic. So I can talk a little bit about that if you want, Mary. But it was very emotional to be back on board. It was fantastic, and it was also extremely safe and clean, and just amazing how the COVID compliant restrictions have been really introduced on board, but have not impacted the day-to-day onboard experience. So that was our goal. We have been working with science and working with the CDC to really make sure that the experience on board is one of the safest that we can actually, present to our guests.
Okay, Susan, I'm sorry, Lori, I would like to ask you another question, and that is, what should travelers be aware of prior to booking a cruise with you?
Well, what I have to say, just returning, and I'm actually getting ready to go again on Thursday, is for 1, to pack your patience, and number 2, pack your enthusiasm for returning back to cruising. But what you need to know is the best travel advisor. Mary, you are one of the best in the business, and as all of you can attest to it, that you have used Mary's services, it is ultimately important to make sure you have somebody who is aware of how to navigate this new environment. The paperwork that is now involved in traveling, the testing that will be required before you leave, as well as your return into Canada, the apps that you have to have on your phone, the Arrive Can app, which is something that will assist you in getting back into our country. You have to be aware of all of these things. And this is what Mary is going to be spending a lot of her time doing, unfortunately now, is educating herself on all of those things. And as borders open, it's really important to understand how that is going to impact everybody. And when you are cruising, very often, as you know, we are going to visit not just 1, 2, 3, maybe 4 countries in one trip. So that involves an awful lot of coordination in terms of paperwork and all that you will need to go off of the ship, to go and explore and to go see everything that you want to see. So it may not be as easy as it used to be. Well, it is not as easy as it used to be. So all of those things are going to be very important. And of course, making sure that you have the right insurance coverage. according to the countries that you're traveling to.
Okay, thank you, Lori. I have another question.
Yes.
It would be helpful if you could comment on the rules and protocols that have been put into place to protect guests from COVID.
Absolutely. And that is probably the first question that everybody has been asking. And during our pause, we really have taken this time to have all of our fleet completely reinstalled with proper air ventilation systems just for this circumstance. So we have put in HEPA air filters on board all of our ships. We have increased our medical staff, and we have also changed our staffing on board. So we have more doctors, we have more nursing on board. We also have specific staterooms that are dedicated for isolation in the unlikely event of a COVID outbreak on board. So we have also organized all of the public areas, the dining room, for example, the show lounges, our schedule when we're doing our shows on board and our entertainment. We have staggered the times so we don't have the rooms as full as they used to be. Our dining rooms, for example, the tables are farther apart. When you are checking in at the pier, everything is physically distanced. We are also staggering the check-in times when you arrive at the pier. So not everybody is arriving at the same time and expecting to board at the same time. So it's a very interesting process now, and we've learned an awful lot about how to manage the flow of people to protect them. Everybody always asks about the buffets. How are we managing that? What I can tell you on Holland America Line is, as well as Seabourn, we have never had self-service buffets, we have had, but for the last probably 8 years, we have removed self-service. So we always serve food to our guests. They're not all going to touch the same spoon and all of those, things in order to get their food. So we are also reducing all of the touch points, as many as we physically can on board. Our cleaning and sanitization has drastically increased. The solutions that we are using specifically for viruses. We also have changed how we mask on board. Every one of our crew are masked. Every one of our guests must be fully compliant and fully vaccinated. That means that we are not accepting any children under the age of 12 that are not vaccinated at this time. So we've taken a very hard line with that. And for one, I'm actually quite pleased with that decision that we have made as a company to protect everybody on board and making sure that everybody, crew, guests, staff, and the destinations that we visit are all kept as safe as we possibly can.
Thank you, Lori.
You're welcome.
Another question.
Yes.
What are the cancellation and refund policies available to your guests?
And that's a very good question. Because of the level 4 advisory that we have in place for Canada, we have, as Susan's company, our leadership has got together so we can make it a little easier for those people that do decide to travel. So we have a program in place called our worry-free cancellation policy. So if you are not comfortable sailing 30 days prior to your cruise departure date, you can cancel and get a full refund, future cruise credit. So you're not going to lose your money. You can just delay your trip for another time. So that is something that we've had in place now for many, many months, since actually January of this year. We also have a program on board. So if you are traveling and you need to be tested for COVID, we have full coverage for all of the testing. In the unlikely event that a guest does contract COVID, we will look after all of the expenses for that guest to be isolated. We will also make sure they get home if they have to be taken off of the ship, or if that's possible. So we will be covering expenses related to COVID. So that clause that perhaps is not covered for all of the standard insurance that Susan described, please know that we will look after our guests on board completely. So they're not going to be at risk when they are sailing with Holland America Line or Seabourn. We are also providing complimentary PCR tests to return into Canada for all Canadians on board. So you do not have to pay. All of that is arranged. It is seamless. It is easy. You have all the paperwork in your hand. You just get off of the ship and fly home.
Great. And one last question, Lori. I know that Holland America has their own platinum insurance. Could you explain what that coverage covers, and does it cover COVID?
Well, our coverage is called a platinum cancellation protection. So what that is designed for is it does cover you for cancellation for any reason. And prior to COVID, this policy was in place really for people that perhaps had a pre-existing condition that, as Susan describes, is a known reason that may cause you to cancel. Our waiver allowed you to cancel for any reason. So your goldfish was sick and you have to cancel, you can cancel for that reason anytime prior to departure. It also covers you for trip interruption. So if you have to leave your holiday halfway through, it will reimburse you for the unused portion of your trip. It also gives you a medical portion there, and I believe the coverage is, don't quote me on this because I believe it actually changed. It was just under $1 million medical policy for people when they were traveling, which I know the coverage that Susan's company offers is a more substantial medical coverage, but ours is a supplement if people perhaps cannot get coverage elsewhere. It's a very good policy if you have a known condition that may cause you to cancel.
Thank you, ladies. That was very,
You're welcome.
Thank you. And now over to you, President Prince.
Thank you, Mary, Lori, and Susan. That was fantastic. And we do have a few questions coming in from our attendees and participants. So I'll try to do a little bit of a rapid fire. So first off, Susan or Mary, you can take this as, you talked about US is accepting mixed vaccines. What are your thoughts on, are they now accepting AstraZeneca if it's in a mixed vaccine kind of a situation?
Yes, as long as the vaccines are approved by the World Health Organization, and AstraZeneca and Pfizer and Moderna and so on, they are.
Okay, excellent. Next question. You talked about Air Canada providing these portable tests. I believe it's from switchhealth.ca, and I believe it's with Aeroplan Partnership right now, but I could be corrected. Could you elaborate a little bit more on how can people get to, get these portable tests?
Well, I don't know much information about that yet, as it just came out the other day. But yes, it can be bought through Air Canada and I think Aeroplan as well. I have the phone numbers and the websites not handy right now, but if anyone would like more information, I'll gladly provide it.
Excellent. Thank you, Mary. That might be helpful. So now also this might be for, again, Lori or Mary. Lori, you talked about quite a bit about cruising and some of the challenges there, and really kudos to you for what Holland America has done in preparation for this. Now, Canadians also tend to be big cruisers, as well as they do tend to go to a lot of all-inclusive resorts. Could you share with us how the resort industry has prepared to open up?
I know that they have their, as everyone has to be vaccinated and have proof of vaccination in order to be able to arrive at the property. They're also going through their own rules and protocols by arriving at a property. And they also have many of the major resorts have their own testing facilities, so that if you need to, when you're leaving the property to fly home, you can be tested. But as I just explained earlier, you can take a test kit with you and get all that done while you're at the property prior to flying home.
Can I just add into that too? One of the things that is very wonderful about cruising, and a big advantage that we have over many, many types of vacations is that our staff are not going home at night. So all of our ship is truly a bubble in terms of our staffing. They're not spending the day with the guests and leaving the resort or leaving the hotel and going home to, you're not sure of the environment. They're staying within the walls of the cruise ship. And currently, depending again, which country, which borders, what situation is awaiting at every destination, most of our staff, I would say 99% of them, are not getting off of the ship at all. So it makes for it's a very different environment in that regard. So that's why, I wanted to make sure, that you were aware that is how we, really make it a really good protected environment. I felt very comfortable on board, knowing all of that.
Thank you. Now this one might be for Mary, maybe a tad bit for Susan. I know the next one will be for Susan. So when booking a trip on your own, let's say you're visiting friends or family, and you don't need to book through a travel agent, can you still arrange insurance through a travel agent like Mary?
Yes, but I would need to know all the details because the insurance is based on three things: how expensive is your trip, how long you're going for, and the age. And all these categories are calculated, and then I can provide calculation on that. But like I said, I would need to get all the details from the client in order to be able to properly quote someone and purchase insurance, or even find out what's best for that client.
Fair enough. So some additional questions. So now, Susan, you talked about insurances and what you're offering, certainly, but in terms of credit card insurances and your comments on what are the limitations with credit card insurances today, and what should people be aware of in, let's say, the COVID/post-COVID world?
Specifically as it relates to your credit card and the coverage that you have on your credit card, that's what the question is? And so just so it's clear, as I said, my role is to support the travel agent product. And the plan for a credit card is totally different. So when you look at travel insurance, you're looking at the eligibility, you're looking at the benefits, you're looking at the insured risks, and you're looking at the exclusions. And they all vary greatly. I mean, like, as I said, we have 26 covered reasons. Your credit card insurance may have 3. So you see the difference in the flexibility in terms of how you're protected. So what we recommend, if you do in fact feel that you have coverage on your credit card, because credit card companies are not in the business of selling travel insurance, and so it is limited, as we know. It's a benefit, and there are some cards that do provide a great coverage. But overall, it's very limited. And so we have tools that we provide our partners like Mary with a list of questions to give to you so that you can actually call your credit card company and find out exactly what you're covered for. Because most often you're not adequately covered. It depends on your age. It depends on, you may be traveling for 2 weeks and your credit card gives you 3 days. You break your leg on day 7, you don't have coverage. So there's so many variables. So you really do need to know what your credit card is, as we know there's many, and what the benefits and what the coverage is. And then once you understand that, then you can go back to Mary, and Mary can top you up to make sure that you're adequately covered. We're not in the business of over-insuring you, but we want to make sure that you're adequately insured. So I can't speak specifically to every credit card and all of their benefits, because the other thing is they change on a regular basis depending on, what they want to do with their marketing and their benefits, their perks for that credit card. They add value, they take away. There is a website that's available. It's called Insure I, and if you go on that website, you have access to it. You can actually plug in your credit card and it'll tell you exactly what your coverage is. But that's automated, and so it's good because it's current.
Prince, if I may, Prince, may I just add something? As Susan had mentioned, quite often the credit cards do not have enough coverage. I found that over the years, when we go over point to point what they cover and what travel insurance as with ALLIANZ covers, we quite often need to do a top up in order for the client to be fully protected.
Excellent.
And
Thank
just so I think too, Mary, I don't think any of the credit card companies have really adjusted their policies to cover COVID travel related expenses.
Correct.
If you're
Correct.
delayed at destination or, their cancellation policies. So thank you, Susan. That's very important.
And thank you. It's good to know that you've got a list of questions there. I'm going to do 2 final questions. One quick one, this might go to Laurie. I know, Laurie, you talked about, and again, that's great that for the last 8 years you haven't been doing any self-serve buffets. But the question was more generic around in terms of, the onboard experience. Are the days of cruising and buffets gone?
No, we absolutely still have a fantastic buffet. We just serve it to you. So it's so much easier, and it's even better than it used to be because we have more choices, better selection, because we can manage it. It's spotlessly clean. It's good food, and our buffet is really, really amazing. I have to say, what we have gone away from is the midnight buffet. And that is a very common cruise question. What time is the midnight buffet? But what has really happened to the buffet is because of our supply chains, literally, getting food on board is a challenge. So we do not have access to local resources that we used to have. So we don't have the big midnight buffet right now. I don't know if it's going to come back. Hard to say.
Okay, and one final question. Again, it might be for you to take. Is around river cruising. Is it correct to assume that these are still not advised, especially given that the ships are smaller? And if that's the case, when do you think they might resume?
River cruising is actually resuming already. So they are at it, mostly in Europe, from my understanding. I don't know about Asia. But I think people feel comfortable sometimes on a smaller vessel. But again, it's, wherever you're cruising to. We only do ocean at Holland America as well as Seabourn. So Mary would probably be very well versed in the river cruise and what your options are if you're wanting to go river.
Laurie, you're quite correct. The river cruising has resumed since they're much smaller ship and smaller amount of people on board the ship. They're still going through the protocols and so on. So yes, they are resuming, and clients can definitely book them.
Well, thank you, Susan and Laurie. You did a fantastic keynote panel discussion. I already saw a plethora of questions, lots of engagement from the members. So thank you for joining us today. A donation has been made in your honor to Shelterbox Canada. Shelterbox Canada is a cutting-edge disaster relief charity which hand delivers shelter and supplies to families affected by natural disasters and conflict. Their signature shelter boxes and shelter kits contain the tools needed to rebuild communities and transform lives. All aid is customized to meet the specific needs of the family so they can not only survive, but recover from disaster. Shelterbox teams will go to the ends of the earth to ensure no family is left without shelter after disasters. Shelterbox is a Rotary International project partner, and this donation in your name is made in partnership with the Rotary Club of Toronto's International Service Committee. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That was very generous. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Now, members, next Friday, November 5th, is our hybrid Remembrance Day meeting. It's going to be a very special meeting with a lunch at the National Club. So please check in at 11:30, and remember, this is a lunch to honor our veterans. So we do certainly hope to see you there. And if you are going to come, make sure you let Carol know by Wednesday of next week so that all arrangements can be made at the National Club. So remember, you do have, and it is still limited capacity. I believe we're now at 45 or 50 there. So it is still limited capacity at National Club. So please don't just show up. You have to pre-register. And of course, we have to go through all our COVID protocols. Our guest speaker, our keynote speaker, will be Barbara Dickinson, historian and author, and her topic will be Bomb Girls. So I think this is going to be fantastic. It's going to be a jam-packed lunch with limited capacity, of course. And again, we do want to make sure that all COVID protocols are being followed through this. Feel free also to invite guests. Yes, as you know, we have opened up our meetings to guests for in person. So you're welcome to come in. Just let Carol know. Well, all of this talk of travel and cruising is making me feel like I should start looking at those plans. I've been itching to travel. Mary knows this. I mean, I usually like to go, and a lot of us do at least 3 or 4 times a year, but haven't been able to travel anywhere for the last, almost 2 years now. So I'm really glad to hear things are opening up, and thank you for letting us know how to do it safely. Friends, this meeting is adjourned. Have a wonderful, wonderful weekend.
Thank you very much, Mr. President.